Hello, and thank you for tuning in to the Fi Mastery Podcast, where our focus is on providing tools, resources, and insights that empower driven individuals to secure their own path to financial independence. My name is Peter Donisanu, and today we're going to talk about your retirement savings accounts. More specifically, we're going to discuss some essential steps you should take at mid-year to ensure that the money you're putting into your employer-sponsored retirement plan is growing in alignment with your long-term savings goals. That's why in today's episode, we'll cover the risks of being too conservative or too aggressive in your investment strategy and how to dial in your asset allocation strategy within your employer-sponsored plan. We'll also cover how to choose between the various fund options in your employer's plan, including matching up the appropriate asset allocation types and being mindful of fees and expenses. And we'll wrap up our discussion with some pointers on ensuring that you're putting enough money away in your retirement plan while balancing your lifestyle, and also the benefits of setting up automatic savings from one year to the next. So with that, let's dive into today's podcast. Making regular contributions to an employer-sponsored plan can supercharge your journey to financial independence. But you already knew that, right? And you likely already knew about the benefits of free money that you could receive from your employer match and how pre-tax contributions to a qualified retirement account like a 401k, a 403b, or other employer-sponsored account can give your financial independence goals a major boost. But did you know that there are things that you need to do periodically throughout the year besides putting money into your employer-sponsored plan to ensure that your financial independence goals are on the right track? Certainly, some of you may be asking yourself, well, isn't contributing to a 401k, a 403b, or other employer-sponsored plan enough to secure my retirement? Well, the short answer is no. That's because getting money into your retirement account is a crucial first step towards securing your path to financial independence, but it's not the only step. Indeed, throughout the year, there are some specific actions that you should take to ensure that you're putting your money to work in the most efficient way possible, that you're not taking any more risk than necessary, and that you're not leaving any money on the table. So then, with the mid-year upon us, there's no better time than the present to log into your employer plan website and follow along as we review a few key factors that can help or hinder your financial independence savings goals. Now, according to various studies out there, asset allocation is one of the most crucial decisions that you can make when it comes to growing and preserving your retirement savings for the long term. And to put it simply, asset allocation refers to the mix between stocks, bonds, real estate, and other assets held in your portfolio. Now, when we think of asset allocation, we tend to think of it in terms of aggressive versus conservative. And so what do we mean here? Well, an aggressive asset allocation could hold a higher weighting to stocks, while a more conservative portfolio holds more bonds. An aggressive allocation tends to take more risk, but also tends to get higher returns over the long run. On the other hand, a conservative portfolio tends to take less risk, but also receives a lower return over the long run. To be sure, growing and preserving your savings has less to do with timing the markets or choosing the best performing security or mutual fund, but instead it has more to do with ensuring that you're putting your money to work in a way that matches your risk tolerance, investment goals, and time horizon. And so why does this matter? Well, let's assume here that you're saving for retirement and have about 15 years to go before you're ready to walk away from your job. Now, if your asset allocation is too conservative, meaning that you're not taking enough risk, you could end up saving less money than you had initially planned for. For example, let's assume that you have $500,000 saved in your employer-sponsored plan. We'll also assume that you're maxing out your contributions, and to simplify our illustrations, we'll leave out any employer match for the time being. Now, if you have an aggressive investment profile, we could assume that you're likely to receive an investment return of around 6.5% over the long term under normal circumstances. Now, given this set of assumptions, your profile could grow to $1.9 million by the time you're ready to walk away from your job. All right, so far so good, right? Well, what happens if we keep all of our assumptions the same, but this time we changed the return assumption to be more consistent with the conservative investment portfolio that is expected to return 3.5% annually over the long term? Well, in this case, your portfolio would still grow, but at the end of 15 years, you'd likely only have $1.3 million saved, which is nearly $500,000 less than in the aggressive asset allocation profile. Now, this illustration shows how essential it is to ensure that your asset allocation aligns with your risk tolerance, your goals, and your time horizon. And the truth is that all too often, individuals who have the room to take more aggressive stances in their retirement portfolios choose to play it too safe, which ends up costing them over the long run. So then if you have well over a decade before you need to begin drawing down on your savings, you may want to take a moment to ensure that you're not being too conservative with your asset allocation. Now, another critical moment to check your investment allocation is when you're 5 or fewer years away from needing to take distributions from your retirement savings. And why is that? Well, what we're trying to do here is get ahead of a risk that we call sequence of return risk. Now, sequence of return risk is especially important to individuals who are less than 5 years away from retirement because it directly impacts the value of your retirement savings during a critical period. Here again, this risk refers to the order and timing of investment returns, which can significantly affect the overall portfolio performance and the sustainability of retirement income. In fact, here's why sequence of return risk is especially concerning to individuals nearing retirement. First, when you're transitioning to retirement, you'll typically start relying on your investment portfolio to provide you with regular income. Now, if there's a sequence of poor investment returns early on in retirement, it can deplete your portfolio faster than expected, leaving fewer funds available for the remainder of your retirement. And why does this matter? Well, this situation is especially detrimental because if you choose not to return to work, then you'll likely have limited time to recover from a significant loss in the markets. Next, if you're approaching retirement, you have a shorter time to replenish your savings compared to those who are earlier in their careers. So then if you experience a series of negative investment returns just before or during your retirement, you may not have the opportunity to recover from those losses through additional savings or prolonged investment horizons. That's because the compounding effect of investment returns becomes less impactful as your retirement approaches. In fact, even small losses in the final years leading up to retirement can have a substantial impact over your entire investment horizon. And that's because there's less time for compounding to work in your favor. Now, another point to consider is that as you're nearing retirement, you may have already made decisions about your retirement income, such as setting up systematic withdrawals. Now, if poor investment returns coincide with the initiation of these income streams, the negative impact could be long-lasting, potentially leading to lower income throughout retirement. Indeed, the impact of sequence of return risk is most profound if you're close to retirement because you have fewer years to recover from a market downturn. Again, a significant loss in the final years before retirement may force you to either delay retirement or make drastic adjustments to your lifestyle plan. So how do you get around this risk? Well, again, this is where your asset allocation strategy comes into play. And at this point, you may want to consider gradually shifting towards a more conservative investment allocation to minimize the potential impact of market volatility. Now, regardless of whether you're in the accumulation stage and have years left to save or are nearing the distribution stage and are preparing to draw down on your savings just a few short years, the first thing that you'll want to do as you're reviewing your employer-sponsored retirement plan is to ensure that your investment holdings align with your overall asset allocation decisions. All right, so now that you have a good understanding of why it's essential to know how much you should have allocated between various asset classes, let's talk about where you should be putting your money to work. Now, the fortunate thing is that in a world of tens of thousands of investment options, your employer-sponsored plan may limit your available investment options to just a few dozen choices. Now, while it's arguable whether this limitation is a good thing or not, the fact is that it does reduce analysis paralysis when it comes to putting your money to work once you've identified your ideal asset allocation framework. So then where should you start when it comes to evaluating your investment options? Well, first things first, take the time to ensure that the funds held in your retirement savings account align with the asset classes defined in your asset allocation strategy. For example, let's say that your goal is to allocate a quarter of your retirement savings to large cap stocks. And let's also say that your employer has given you the option of a total stock market index fund and an S&P 500 index fund. Which one should you go with? Well, if you decide to go with a total stock market index fund, you would not only gain exposure to large cap stocks, but you'd also have exposure to mid and small cap stocks at the same time. Now, while this may not seem like a big deal on the surface, the point here is that if you're serious about adhering to a disciplined asset allocation approach, then you need to choose funds whose investment profiles match the asset classes that you're selecting them for. We call this asset class purity. Now, when you select funds that are asset class pure, it means that you choose funds that focus exclusively on a specific asset class or investment category. Here again, asset classes refer to different types of investments such as stocks, bonds, real estate commodities, or cash equivalents. And by opting for asset class pure funds, your aim is to maintain concentrated exposure to a particular asset class rather than investing in a diversified fund that includes multiple asset classes. This approach allows for a targeted investment strategy and can be beneficial if you have a strong conviction about a specific asset class or want to align your investment choices with a particular investment theme or strategy. For example, if you believe that the stock market will outperform other asset classes in the near future, you may choose to allocate funds exclusively to equity-focused funds, which primarily invest in stocks. And by doing so, you concentrate your investments in a single asset class, potentially maximizing returns if your predictions prove correct. Now, it's important to note that investing in asset class pure funds carries certain risks because when your portfolio is concentrated in a single asset class, it may be more susceptible to fluctuations and volatility specific to that particular asset class. And that's why diversification across multiple asset classes is a common strategy to mitigate risk and smooth out investment performance over time. Therefore, selecting asset class pure funds should be carefully considered and aligned with your risk tolerance, investment objective, and overall portfolio diversification strategy. Now, if you're not sure which asset classes a specific fund tracks, you can always look up the benchmark that the fund is measuring itself against in the fund's prospectus, or you can go online and use a tool like Morningstar.com to evaluate the asset class style for that particular fund. Another point to take into consideration when choosing which funds to hold in your retirement account is fees and expenses. Here again, it comes back to the old adage that it's not about how much you make, but how much you keep. And it's equally important to note that not all employer-sponsored retirement plans are created alike. Therefore, the fees and expenses you're likely to pay will vary depending on your program, but the three main expenses that you want to pay a special attention to are individual service fees, administration fees, and investment fees. Now, of these fees, you'll want to pay a special attention to investment fees related to your fund holdings. And why do investment fees matter? Well, let's assume for a moment that you're considering 3 funds that track large cap stocks, and they all seem like reasonable investments. Now, if you're not paying attention, you could be giving away much more of your investment returns in the form of fees than you expected. Indeed, depending on your situation, investment fees in your employer-sponsored retirement account can range between 0.5% to 2% per year. Now, at face value, this may not seem like a lot, but a 0.5% difference on a $500,000 portfolio invested over 15 years could mean foregoing $100,000. And in the case where the fee is 2% for a given fund, that could cost you well over $400,000 in potential returns. That's why when you're choosing between various fund options for your retirement plan, your best bet is to go with the fund that is both high quality and low cost, given your specific asset allocation constraints. All right, now that you've ensured that you've dialed in your asset allocation decisions in alignment with your risk tolerance and have chosen low cost asset class pure funds to go along with those allocations, one last thing you'll want to do is to ensure that you're setting aside enough money in your retirement account. But now, how much is enough? Well, because everyone's situation is unique and there's no one right answer, here are some general guidelines to consider as you go about putting money to work in your retirement savings accounts. First, many employers offer a match percentage of your 401k contributions up to a certain limit. And in many ways, when your employer matches your contributions, it's essentially free money being added straight to your retirement savings. In fact, this is an immediate return on your investments, which is something few other investment opportunities can offer. And in a sense, not taking advantage of this match would be like turning down a pay raise. What's more, your employer match can accelerate the growth of your retirement savings. That's because this extra contribution not only increases the principal amount being invested, but it also compounds over time, which could significantly increase the total amount you have saved by the time you retire. Again, what we're talking about here is essentially free money that provides an immediate return on your investment. That's why if your employer provides this benefit, you should consider contributing up to the maximum matching limit. Next, it's crucial to strike a balance between saving for the future and maintaining a reasonable quality of life in the present. That's because your ability to contribute to your retirement savings account will be influenced by your current income and ongoing living expenses. Now, as it stands today, the contribution limit for employees who participate in 401k, 403b, and other employer-sponsored plans is $22,500 per year. And if you're over the age of 50, you have the option to drop in another $7,500 annually as a catch-up contribution. So then as you go about considering how much to contribute to your employer-sponsored plan, maxing out your contributions should be your priority in most cases. That's because most contributions to employer-sponsored plans are made on a pre-tax basis, which allows you to put more money to work before Uncle Sam gets his fair share of your earnings. All right, so as you're evaluating your contributions, if you're making the bare minimum to take advantage of your employer's match, but not willing to max out your pre-tax contributions, then what should you do to find the right balance? Well, if you find yourself in this situation, then your likely focus should be on setting aside enough money to cover your projected lifestyle expenses in retirement. Here again, how much you need to save will largely depend on the kind of retirement lifestyle you want. That's why you should consider factors like where you want to live, what kind of activities you want to participate in, and other costs like healthcare expenses. Now, in previous posts, we spent quite some time discussing how to use exponential returns to calculate your retirement savings need. And if you don't have a financial plan and are looking for a quick and easy way to figure out your savings need, then online calculators and retirement planning tools can help you estimate how much you'll need to save to meet your retirement savings goals. Now, as you're going about reviewing your employer-sponsored plan, another option to consider is setting up your plan contributions to automatically automatically rise each year as you earn more money. Now, automatically increasing your contributions each year is often called auto-escalation, which could work in your favor in several ways. For starters, it's a straightforward and effortless method to regularly boost your savings. To be sure, since the contributions increase automatically, you don't have to remember to make the adjustments for yourself from one year to the next, which means there's less chance that you'll forget or delay it altogether. Now, another benefit to consider when it comes to choosing this option is that as your salary grows over time, there's a tendency for spending to increase along with it. This is what we call lifestyle inflation. Now, if you're automatically increasing your contributions from one year to the next, then you're effectively channeling some of that extra income that might have gone into spending straight to your savings. And naturally, by contributing more to your employer-sponsored plan, you're speeding up the growth of your retirement savings. Indeed, every incremental increase in your yearly contribution accelerates this process, potentially allowing you to reach your retirement savings goal much sooner than expected. The bottom line here is that these annual increases might seem insignificant in the short term, but they can significantly impact your total savings over time thanks to the power of compounding. Either way, as you're reviewing your employer-sponsored plan, you'll want to make sure that you're contributing enough to take advantage of your employer's match, and if you can, max out your pre-tax contributions to enable your savings to grow for maximum effort. And when possible, turn on auto-escalation within your plan to make higher contributions much more effortlessly. Now, no matter where you are in your journey to financial independence, ensuring that your retirement savings are on the right track requires more than just contributing to an employer-sponsored plan. Indeed, while it's a crucial first step, there are additional measures you need to take on a regular basis to maximize the efficiency of your retirement savings and minimize unnecessary risks. Indeed, when it comes down to it, managing your employer-sponsored retirement account involves three key aspects. First, you should assess your asset allocation to align it with your risk tolerance, investment goals, and time horizon. This step will allow you to strike the right balance between risk and return, ensuring your savings grow in an optimal fashion. Next, carefully evaluate the investment options available within your retirement account. Here again, you'll want to consider the concept of asset class purity and select funds that correspond to your desired asset class choices. And by doing so, you'll maintain a focused investment strategy and potentially capitalize on specific asset class performance. At the same time, pay close attention to the fees and expenses associated with those fund holdings. Remember, even seemingly small differences in fees can significantly impact your long-term returns. That's why you should consider opting for lower-cost, high-quality funds that align with your asset allocation decisions to preserve more of your investment returns. And lastly, make sure you're contributing enough to your retirement savings accounts. Here, you'll want to ensure that you're taking advantage of your employer's match, given that it's essentially free money that could boost your savings, and at the same time, strive to maximize your pre-tax contributions and consider using auto-escalation to gradually increase your savings over time. And by finding the right balance between your saving for the future and your current lifestyle, you can ensure a more secure retirement over the long run. And by addressing asset allocation alignment, investment selection, fee management, and contributions, you can ensure that you're taking one step closer to becoming a master of your own financial independence journey. Well, that's it for now. Thank you for taking the time to listen to the FI Mastery podcast. To learn more about our research, visit us at fimastery.com or email your questions to questions@franklinmadisonadvisors.com. Until next time, I'm Peter Donisanu, wishing you and yours abundant health and prosperity.
FI Mastery Podcast is brought to you by Franklin Madison Advisors, Inc. Franklin Madison Advisors is a registered investment advisor firm with its registration and principal place of business in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Registration of an investment advisor does not imply a certain level of skills or training. This commentary and forecasts are limited to the dissemination of general information pertaining to Franklin Madison Advisors' investment advisory services and general economic and market conditions and are subject to change without notice. The information shared today is not intended to be personal, legal, investment, or tax advice, or a solicitation to buy or sell any security or engage in a particular investment strategy. For additional information about Franklin Madison Advisors, including fees and services, please contact Franklin Madison Advisors or refer to the Investment Advisor Public Disclosures.